Ladies and gentlemen, grab your gloves and get your compost ready. Stepping into the ring is the perennial powerhouse, the sultan of soil, the beast of the beds, where permaculture reigns, food grows wild, community roots run deep, and yes, the garden puns hit hard. Freedom starts in the soil. This is the Guerrilla Gardening Show.
Welcome back to the Guerrilla Gardening Show. I'm Mike with Mike's in the Garden, here with my friend Sam from Central Florida Abundance. What's going on, Sam?
What's going on, y'all? What's going on, Mike? I
Uh,
hear you got another project for us today to look at.
I do. I think this will be a helpful video for somebody that is unsure of what or where they could be planting things. Maybe they have, you know, blank palette, a clean slate. They're looking at a piece of their land and they're not sure what to do with it. This is going to be a little bit different because I think there may be some things that would prevent you from planting certain things. But before we jump in and share this highly educational video with you, um, if you watched our last episode, we mentioned that we're going to be giving something away at the end. So make sure you tune into the end, and for that lucky person, we're gonna give you something if you comment. So um, today we're looking at essentially the patch of grass between my front yard, the sidewalk, and the street. And when we moved in several years ago, it was basically sand. And now, years later, it's just even more sand. And now it has a million acorns on it. So this might look familiar. This is my front yard garden patch over my septic system. That's why you see a lot of large pots. And you can see this big giant oak tree here, not a ton of grass around it, very barren. And
As
then
it should be.
here is where I am not able to do much of anything. I shouldn't say not able, I should say I've yet to figure out what should go there. And so, not in this video, but directly across the street is my neighbor's two loquat trees that are planted in between the street and the sidewalk. They're probably 15, 20-year-old trees, but this mailbox that we're looking at directly in just in front of that mailbox, you can kind of see on the ground here, if you can see
Oh, there's a water meter.
there's a water meter there. And so I'm not
Yeah.
really sure where the water goes along this sidewalk. I'm sure DigSafe could tell me that, but I can guarantee that across the street there's water where those loquats are. So let's take the underground utilities out of this for a moment, Sam. And
Is that the only issue, like with planting there?
as far as I know, I don't think there's any gas. There's no electric.
The mail doesn't drive up on here or the garbage or anything?
They don't. Now, we
Okay.
had talked about, sunshine mimosa. We had talked about perennial peanut, wandering Jew, stuff like that. Um, this is a place that people do park from time to time, but they don't have to park there. It looks like a parking lot because it doesn't look like anything else. So, um, really,
Some,
I thought this would be a good opportunity to take a look at something like this and say, what can we do with this?
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have similar situations, part of their yard. Like this is your property,
Mhm.
correct? Yeah, like, you own on this side of the sidewalk, but they don't really leave you much space to do anything with it. And if you have like an oak tree, oak trees inhibit the growth of those small, turf covering species because they want their roots to be more exposed to the surface. And so, the oak tree that maybe even, you know, was planted in your yard when your house was built to
Probably.
be a thing, has killed the grass that they probably also put in the yard, which, you know, I'm on the side of kill your lawn. So if the oak tree's killing your lawn for you, that sounds great. And there are things, that you can plant under these oaks that are going to appreciate those conditions. Um, I would say just first, you know, an easy way to find out about the pipe is just to dig a little trench because the pipe shouldn't be down too far.
No, it's not.
You can dig from one end from the sidewalk to the road kind of thing, and then find out where that pipe is if it does run through here. But beyond that, thinking about height of plants is important. If you put some taller, even like moderately sized 2 to 3 foot shrubs out here, it's going to encourage people to park there less, which, maybe that would be good. Um, and, it's going to, I mean, help the soil for one, which, you know, it's not much soil to be had, uh, but you can still improve it. I would
So I
probably,
had given this a good raking a couple years ago, and at that point it was just like impacted sand. We had a chip drop. We didn't have enough to put out in the front here because that was when we were starting our food forest. So we
yeah,
wanted to
low
make sure.
priority area.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I'm not opposed to, we've got, we signed up for another chip drop. So, this could easily have 4 to 6 inches of mulch on it a month from now. And I've considered taking, I have two Florida citrus trees, we'll call them, um, sour lemon, sour orange, whatever they might be, in large pots, those 25-gallon pots, because I don't want to plant them on top of my septic. But I've even considered moving those pots out here and, kind of establishing them as, or establishing this area as a place where future plants will be.
The citrus is definitely big for here because it'll be in the sidewalk,
I
it'll be in
wouldn't
the
I
road.
wouldn't directly plant it. I would
Oh,
keep
just
it,
set them
I'd keep
here.
it in the pot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
that's probably good. I wouldn't plant any like I mean, really the loquats on the other side, they're gonna start tearing up the sidewalk soon. And anything large that you plant in is gonna have that same effect. And I mean, when you're planting for longevity, and if there's already a sidewalk there, if there's not a sidewalk, I'd advise don't pour a bunch of concrete around your house. That's gonna improve your life a lot. But if you're stuck with it because your city planner just loves concrete, then doing things that aren't going to destroy the sidewalk make the long-term life easier. So small things though, there's I mean, how much space do you think is between the sidewalk and the road? Like 3 feet,
what
four
we're
feet?
looking at here,
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably a 4 foot sidewalk. So I'd say it's probably 6 feet wide.
Oh, okay. So there's quite a bit of room
Yeah,
for,
maybe 30, 40 feet long.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we
Oh,
got,
and it widens a little bit.
yeah,
You can put a couple layers of smaller plants here. Um, but like in the ground, I'd say your max height would be like, plants that get like 4 or 5 feet,
what
which,
about like some lemongrass or
yeah, I think that would
okay.
be grasses. Some bunching grass species would be really
Okay.
good. Lemongrass would be fun because people would know what it was. As long you just have to cut it, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Just cut it down to the ground and let it regrow. And then you can use all that to mulch this area,
Hmm.
because once your wood chips break down, then you're going to need more mulch. And, now you've got a bunch of plants there, so you don't want to dump mulch just right on top of them.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, mixing in some bunching grasses and quite a few. I mean, of the lemongrass. And you said it's 30 feet, and you could leave some areas, um, for access, into the yard if you ever needed to drive a truck in. I'd say some wild coffee, like the Florida native wild coffee. It's like a 2 foot high. I mean, they can get bigger, but rarely in the sun like this. But they love being in the shade of oaks. They'd probably need some water at first because I bet this soil does not take water in at all.
No, it's like runoff.
Yeah. So, but long term, that'd be a great species to mix in here. They would kind of self-replicate themselves, make a nice little short hedge.
Is this something you would till?
Nah,
Okay,
no,
fair enough.
really. So if you wanted to do it so that like the first round of plant, like if the first round of plants you plant are set up for success, you'd want to put like maybe, you know, 4 inches probably isn't crazy, you know, 2 to 4 inches of mulch, and then and then seed in a cover crop.
Okay.
And that's something, I mean, daikon radishes would probably, help a bit with this. You could even grow like sweet potatoes out here and then make sure you kill all the sweet potatoes. And then that's going to leave, you know, some tubers in the ground maybe to rot and break down. They may regrow. You'd have to kill them again, but that's gonna break up this soil a little bit, get some things growing, and then the soil will be a little bit looser. There'll be a little bit more microbial activity because at this point, it's probably very little microbial activity, and it's not so much like the lack of plants that suggests that, because this oak tree, is going to inhibit that growth while still stimulating a lot of microbes. But there's a lot of bare, exposed soil,
Mhm.
and it's right next to this asphalt. I'm sure it gets very hot there in the summers. And so, that's going to inhibit the growth of a lot of microorganisms. But
So
you can always bring them back.
this is 8 o'clock this morning.
Okay.
I'd say between 9 and 12, this area gets pounded with sun, and
Oh,
then
okay. Midday.
pretty much after 1, 2 o'clock, this tree and the neighboring trees, um, this is pretty much in the shade the rest of the day.
Well, that's going to be ideal for really most plants, that morning sun and then filtered sun throughout the rest of the day. Um, a lot of things like those conditions, especially here in Florida. Because, I mean, one thing to consider is that like that oak tree's not blocking all of the sunlight that's hitting this spot, really
Sure.
only a fraction of it.
Yeah, mostly in
Um,
the afternoon because the sun, as we can see, the sun is coming up. We're
yeah.
facing east right now, so um, that sun's coming up. So the shade's behind this oak tree now, where in the afternoon, a lot of this. Um, so like one of my thoughts with this, Sam, is, it's barren. It's, a desert scape here in Central Florida, but I'm not looking to put any food production here necessarily because every, swinging dog dick that's coming by is going to pee on it. So,
And
uh,
all the exhaust from the cars and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
It'd be like just dumping it right on your yeah. But it's a great place to make like a hedgerow, to stop some of that stuff from getting into your garden.
sure.
So, perennial species are really what you're going to look for here. Things that you're going to plant once and they're going to stick around. Maybe the first planting is annual cover crops, like I mentioned, but your layout and your design is going to be with perennial plants. Um, and I mean, personal preference is a lot of key. Have you put any thought into like what plants you might put in here? You definitely need like a permanent ground cover, I would say. Just once it starts getting better, then other things will want to grow in.
Yeah, I guess I did think about the sweet potato, but now that you mention it, at least maybe for a year,
Right.
putting
It's
the
got to
sweet
be short
potato
term.
in so that it can start to break up the soil and provide some nutrients and then rip everything out, you know, the end of the summer next year and then figure out what to do next. And then, in the meantime, I could bring over one of those citrus trees and get some lemongrass going here and um but I would imagine most people now our HOA, they're it's $150 a year, so they don't have too much control or power. Um, but obviously, I would be concerned with utilities, whether it's underground electric or the water. Can easily see where those water pipes are going. Um, but I guess like what other concerns would people have? You mentioned the exhaust, cars going by,
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do edibles really, because I mean, it does seem like you do get a bit of traffic on this road.
for sure.
Uh, so that can be an issue. I mean, since it is a neighborhood, people are walking down these sidewalks. You really have to take, the neatness of it all into consideration. You don't want a lot of stuff, encroaching into the sidewalk, and you certainly don't want anything, that could be harmful. I mean, earlier when you were talking about the citrus trees, I envisioned them going into the ground and then those giant thorns just going out into the sidewalk, people getting caught on that,
Sure.
that can be a liability issue. Uh, but, you know, if you're taking the people and the surroundings into consideration, there's really not too many problems. You just have to, consider the utility pipes, consider, the other people around you. And then, 9 times out of 10, the residents are never going to have a problem with it. Like you said, if you have an HOA, you know, they may have concerns. Read their guidelines because, they're going to have spelled out conditions. But also, the state of Florida encourages the planting of, I believe the legislature says Florida friendly plants, and then that includes natives. So, even some non-native species, your HOA cannot tell you that you cannot plant them, even if it's not on their approved plant list. If it's a Florida friendly species, the state has declared that, you can put it in your yard. So, definitely focus on things that are Florida friendly. Um, but then also, you know, just take into account the things that are going on here. We don't want to break the water pipe. We like
Mhm.
having, sewer. We don't want to, we definitely don't want to dig through any, electric or phone lines in the ground. I would say, especially when you're working this close to the road, make sure you call 411, have them come out. They'll spray paint everything that's down there. And even after that happens, be cautious when you put your shovels into the ground in a new spot, because they don't always, sometimes they miss a thing or two. Um, but beyond that, I'd say height is an important thing to consider. You don't want things too big, too crazy. Things that'll stay small on their own will be easier to manage.
Okay.
You could definitely make, a wildlife habitat out of it, albeit a small one, but it'll give them, some refuge by having, some layers of plants. When you look at this strip, you've got 6 feet in the center. Maybe you've got a 2, 3 foot tall plant, and then coming down from that, you've got maybe another layer or two, and that can be, steps down. And then you could have a ground cover that, you know, isn't a grass to be mowed. Uh, Sunshine mimosa, creeping sage, It's probably too dry for frog fruit, but once the soil gets better, that'll be the real vision. Because I mean, right now it is hard to tell what would like the conditions because
Yeah.
the conditions are so poor. Um, but if you pay attention to how much water that area gets, not necessarily how much it absorbs, but like, you know, pooling around there, water running through it. Because once you add that mulch, once you get some plants growing, the water won't flow through as quickly. So it actually will capture more. So sometimes we can be surprised, if we have compacted soils, you may think like, oh, well, they're super dry, they never get any water, but, maybe they get several inches of water, more than enough than they need, but they're not absorbing that. And so, once they start to, then we've planted out all these plants that are good for dry conditions. And now it's, swampy.
Right, right.
So, consider your weather. I'm sure but everybody watching, observe your yard, pay attention to what goes on, try to take measurements and write them down whenever you can, record the average temperatures, record the amount of rainfall you get, because that's going to answer all your questions. Most of the questions that people ask me when they hire me to come out and do a consultation are, things that they would be able to answer themselves if they just kept a little journal. You know, if they've, as long as you've been there for a couple years, once you've been on a property for 3 years, you've had plenty of time to gather a firm understanding of the environmental conditions. At least on average, there's always going to be those crazy events, but
Sure.
you know, we just do our best.
Yeah, yeah.
I
All
think
right,
it's got
great.
some potential. I think you
Yeah.
could you could
I
do
think
some
I'm
stuff
gonna
out there.
start with the mulch. I'll put some sweet potato in there and then just kind of let that do its thing for a while and just pay attention to it and
Yeah,
see.
just weed eat the edges, take a weed eater out there. It'll probably look pretty.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I'm excited. So great. Well, we promised
nice.
we were gonna give something away. So
Hopefully y'all are
for
excited.
for all those guerrilla gardening fans out there that made it to the end of the last episode or to the end of this episode, we want to reward you with a Guerrilla Gardening shirt. So the first person to comment, you can say, "Pick me, I'm the winner." The first person to comment, the Guerrilla Gardening shirt, um, just comment. We'll figure out how to get in touch with each other and get your shirt size and get you a Guerrilla Gardening shirt because we appreciate your support. So
Yeah, drop it down below. We'll reach out to y'all. But thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, we really appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. I know the views have been pretty consistent on our videos, so I'm glad for that, and hopefully we've educated some people. And if they want to learn more, Sam, and hire you to do what we just did in this video, but more lengthy and actual, hands-on boots on the ground, where do they do that?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're not getting educated by the videos, hopefully you're at least entertained.
For sure.
But if you want some in-depth consultations focused on your property, I offer that site property garden consultations. And I also offer maintenance and installation services. You can get in contact with me through Central Florida Abundance on Instagram and YouTube. You can find my email there if you want to send me a direct message. But check it out, like and subscribe. And you can go check out Mike's shop where he's got all his cool shirts.
Yeah, we don't just have the elusive and exclusive Guerrilla Gardening shirts. We also have, you can get yourself a Mike's in the Garden shirt. I have a couple behind me here, but um, we've got funny gardening shirts, silly gardening shirts, slightly offensive. I'm working on more highly offensive ones, but slightly offensive is where we're at right now. So, um, yeah, it's a great way to support the channel and put a couple bucks in my pocket. So it makes us feel like we're reaching people and doing the do here. So
Yeah, if you don't win your Guerrilla Gardening shirt, if you're the second person to comment, go over to the shop, grab another one. They're up there.
yeah, they should be scrolling by you right now. So if you don't like or want that one, you can purchase some other ones. So
Poppy wants y'all to go get a shirt.
that's right.
Do it for her.
Do what Poppy says. So
All right, y'all. Till the next one. We'll see you.